This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, plus special features and reports with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Good afternoon. Thanks for checking in. The Middle East, a tinderbox for sure right now. Iranian missile strikes this morning injured nearly 100 civilians inside Israel. Tehran firing at least 25 ballistic rockets at over 6 targets, including a high-rise residential building near Tel Aviv and a hospital in Beersheba. The BBC's Dan Johnson is at that hospital.
The roof was on fire, the windows blown out, and that attack has been condemned by the Israelis, accusing the Iranians of hitting a civilian target.
Mike Tobin with Fox News.
The injuries are minor because the Israelis are respecting the warnings. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that they will now extract a price from the tyrants in Iran. His words.
Israeli military spokesman Nadav Shoshani.
This is a preview. This morning we saw a preview of what could happen if we let Iran keep going this way. And their goal was to have thousands and thousands of these ballistic missiles on Israeli civilians, and on top of that, nuclear weapons.
Today, the Israeli defense minister said the spiritual leader of Iran, the 86-year-old Ayatollah, should not be allowed to exist. President Trump says he hasn't decided yet whether to join in the fight against Iran. NBC's Garrett Hake continues our coverage.
The president says he's keeping American options open for a strike until the last possible second amid what's been fast-moving developments in this conflict. The timeline for a presidential decision is getting shorter and the stakes are getting higher.
Meantime, a new poll from the Washington Post today shows only 25% of the American people support the U.S. launching airstrikes against Iran. Rinse, recycle, repeat. More severe storms are threatening millions today up and down the East Coast. Meteorologist Angie Lassman.
In this same system that caused all the trouble yesterday, it's going to basically take aim on parts of the East Coast, specifically the Northeast, stretching down to the Mid-Atlantic as the day goes on.
64 million of us are under the gun today. We're going to talk a little bit more about yesterday's deluge later in the broadcast. Eric slammed into the Pacific coast of southwest Mexico today as a major hurricane, and it's one for the record books. Forecaster Noah Burgum.
This will be a historic storm. There's never been a major hurricane Cat 3 plus hit Mexico during the month of June. But this will be a devastating flood for many of these areas.
More than 1.5 feet of rain expected in tourist hotspots like Acapulco in southwestern Mexico. Eric making landfall earlier today in the state of Oaxaca with 125-mile-per-hour winds. New research suggests social media addiction is a bigger risk to kids than just too much screen time.
The study in the medical journal JAMA followed 4,000 10-year-olds. Half of them became addicted to their phones by age 14. Lead author Dr. Yunyu Shao says those kids were 2 to 3 times more likely to have thoughts of suicide, even if their screen time was relatively low.
It is not just about the time that is spent, but it's about the addictive behaviors.
The researchers say limiting screen time is not enough. Kids who are addicted to phones or video games may need cognitive behavioral psychotherapy.
Michael Wallace reporting. Pro-family activists are applauding yesterday's 6-3 Supreme Court ruling that gives states the right to ban transgender surgeries on children. Mike Davis with the Article 3 Project.
These are kids who are depressed. Maybe some of them have gender dysphoria. These states have decided they want to outlaw these procedures because these are life-destroying procedures on kids. And there is an industry growing around this where they're making a lot of money making these kids their guinea pigs.
The justices upheld Tennessee's Help Not Harm law, which halts irreversible gender transition procedures on minors.
Can the state ban doctors from cutting off kids' limbs? Of course the state can do that. So why couldn't the state ban these doctors from cutting off the kids' genitals and destroying their lives?
The court's ruling impacts 26 other states with similar measures on the books. A SpaceX Starship exploded in Starbase, Texas last night. That ship erupted into a massive fireball on the launch pad. Correspondent Tom Costello.
This has not been a good year for Elon Musk or SpaceX. This latest explosion is yet another setback for Musk's lifelong quest to eventually send humans to Mars. But more immediately, NASA needs Starship to get to the moon.
The blast caused homes in Starbase, Texas to shake and a lot of nerves to rattle. SpaceX called it a major anomaly. It is Juneteenth, the day to celebrate the end of slavery in these United States. On June 19th, 1865, Union troops arrived in Texas and proclaimed the last enslaved blacks free.
Frank Smith at the African American Civil War Museum and Memorial says no one believed that people in Galveston, Texas didn't know President Lincoln had signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863.
They knew that somewhere in Texas, in the deep crevices and corners of Texas, there probably was some last holdout down there, some Confederates.
So he says the Army sent General Granger there with 4 black regiments to mop up.
America had gone from a slaveocracy to a democracy.
Smith says the black troops stayed for 2 years to make sure the formerly enslaved were paid wages and treated with respect.
Correspondent Allison Keyes, a new NBA champion, may be crowned tonight. The Indiana Pacers play host to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Game 6 of the NBA Finals in Indianapolis. The Thunder have won back-to-back games and currently lead the best-of-7 series 3-2. A win by Indiana would force a decisive Game 7 on Sunday. By the way, neither team has ever won the championship. OKC technically did, but they were the Seattle Supersonics then, back in 1979. Still to come on the Noon Report. Police-involved shooting in Chautauqua County. Record rain near Rochester. And how safe is your water? Penn State says there's room for improvement in Pennsylvania.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. Keep an eye on the sky. Some of us will have some icy thunderstorms crossing the area this afternoon. I'll have forecast details in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll look for you then. The cleanup continues after powerful storms soaked the region Wednesday afternoon and again last night. More inclement weather in store today, especially central New York, northeastern Pennsylvania. Yesterday, the rain was intense in the Rochester region. These Monroe County residents telling Wham News.
We got probably 5 to 10 inches of rain here at the end of the road here.
This is the first time I've seen this bad. Yeah. I mean, we've had a little drainage stopping, but this is like a lake now.
In 2 years, this has flooded extravagantly, every year. Every time it does this, my furnace is guaranteed to be shot.
Traffic was backed up on I-90 in Henrietta due to the heavy flooding. Firefighters in that community responded to dozens of flooded out basements and water rescues. An 84-year-old man is dead after a 2-vehicle crash on Route 417 in Woodhull, New York. The elderly driver was in a pickup trying to cross the road from a field when he was struck by a woman driving a van. The impact caused both of those vehicles to catch fire. The woman was taken to the hospital for treatment. A Chautauqua County, New York man is dead, and a sheriff's deputy is injured after an exchange of gunfire yesterday afternoon. It started around 4 p.m. when cops showed up at the man's home in Mina to investigate a domestic disturbance. Sheriff Jim Quantrone says that's when things started to unravel.
Everything took place outside of the house. There was verbal commands, several verbal commands being given by the officer until the gunfire commenced. 2 officers were at the scene and were involved in that incident.
Quantrone says the 2 sheriff's deputies who were responding to the domestic disturbance call were wearing body cameras and they were turned on at the time. The state attorney general's office is investigating the use of deadly force. The sheriff says he regrets the loss of life.
I think it impacts the whole community. This is a tight-knit community out in this area of the county, and so nobody wants to see anybody's life taken. So the emotional effect on everybody involved takes a toll.
The suspect was armed with a shotgun. The deputy was shot in the hand. Authorities describing the suspect as a white middle-aged man who was a long-term resident of Mina. A new study from Penn State raises concerns about chemicals found in private water wells throughout Pennsylvania. Here's Family Life's Brian Query.
A Penn State research team found that 18% of private wells tested in Pennsylvania Pennsylvania had levels of PFAS, or what are known as forever chemicals, above federal drinking water standards. They're called forever chemicals because they don't break down easily in the environment or the human body. The study, published in the upcoming Journal of Environmental Management, examined 167 wells over 3 years and found 65% of the wells had detectable levels of these chemicals, though researchers say most were within treatable ranges. Higher levels were more common in the state's southeast and near developed land. Experts urge private well owners to consider testing their water for safety. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. The Pennsylvania state budget is due at the end of the month, and the general consensus in Harrisburg is lawmakers are going to miss that deadline. Senate Majority Leader Joe Pittman.
There is no framework of a deal. I can tell you that. We are engaged in conversations. Those conversations have not gone nearly as quickly as we would prefer. So we have a lot of work to do.
But he does note a late state budget is nothing out of the ordinary.
So we have seen this movie before, and on July 1st, the sun will come up, and I don't think the people of Pennsylvania will see any notable difference in their daily lives.
This year's budget calls for a 3% increase in spending over last year. The governor wants to pay for that spending by expanding gambling and access to marijuana. A new coronavirus variant that's making the rounds is causing severe sore throat in a lot of victims. It's believed to make up more than a third of all the COVID cases right now.
The highly contagious variant called Nimbus has a symptom that is being referred to as a razor blade throat because it feels like swallowing razor blades. The CDC says this makes up about 37% of coronavirus cases nationwide and recently caused coronavirus surges in China and other parts of Asia. Right now, the CDC has coronavirus activity labeled as low in the U.S.
Scott Pringle reporting environmentalists are up in arms in Albany after New York lawmakers failed to pass for the second year in a row the Plastic Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act. Its aim is to reduce plastic packaging by 30% over the next 12 years. Former EPA Administrator Judith Enck calls the bill's defeat irresponsible.
I think New Yorkers need to know that it's one guy standing in the way.
Enck says that one guy is Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, who failed to bring the measure up for a vote, even though he had the votes for passage. Ken Pulaski with the Business Council of New York says it's a good thing this bill did not pass.
Is this something we really want to do? Do we understand the bill well enough? Is this going to be costly and disruptive for consumers?
New York lawmakers have adjourned for the summer, having approved the latest state budget in 15 years. The Jasper Troopsburg School District in Steuben County, New York, will be holding a public meeting next Tuesday to discuss the status of its vacant high school. That building has not been in use since August of 2021 due to 2 floods in a span of 3 years that decimated downtown Jasper. Students have been gathering instead in next door Greenwood for the past 4 academic years. That public meeting starts at 6 p.m. June 24th at the Jasper Town Hall. Nassau County, New York says it will be partnering with ICE in enforcing federal immigration law. Police Commissioner Patrick Ryder.
They're going after the bad guys. They're going after those with the criminal records, the murderer, the rapists, those that are here committing these crimes. We go with them if they're asked, and we assist them in the process.
Ryder says 10 officers with the county sheriff's office will be taking part in the federal enforcement effort. New York Attorney General Tish James is investigating sheriff's departments that cooperate with ICE. The Seneca Park Zoo in Rochester, New York, has had to euthanize a baby giraffe. That giraffe was born this week with leg paralysis. It could not stand on its own. Zoo officials say with first-time moms, the risk of a newborn giraffe calf not surviving is close to 50%. The U.S. Justice Department is investigating New York's ban on Native American mascots.
It comes after U.S. Education Secretary Linda McMahon visited Massapequa High School, where she claimed the state's ban on Native American imagery in public schools violates the Civil Rights Act. New York's Board of Regents banned Native American mascots in 2023. Massapequa currently goes by the Chiefs and their mascot is a Native American in a headdress. But the state says schools that do not comply by the end of this month could risk losing funding. I'm Natalie Migliori.
All right, Natalie, thank you very much. Let's pause, talk sports. Next, it's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob Yankees manager Aaron Boone said the offense is getting better. Well, yeah, I guess so. New York didn't get shut out again, but they still lost the game 3-2 to the Angels. Jazz Chisholm Jr. and Cody Bellinger both hit home runs, but it wasn't enough to prevent the Yanks from losing their 6th straight game. Aaron Judge continuing to struggle at the plate. He went 0 for 4, struck out twice. Ronald Acuna Jr. hit a leadoff home run, and Chris Sale was 1 out shy of a complete game shutout as Atlanta blanked the Mets 5-0. Ranger Suarez struck out 8 over 7 innings of 1-run ball to help the Phillies double up the Marlins 4-2. Bryson Stott, a 3-run shot to provide the offense needed to win the game. Phils have now won 6 of their last 7. Elsewhere in Major League Baseball, Trevor Story belted a 2-run shot to help Garrett Crochet and the Red Sox to a 3-1 victory over Seattle. The Orioles scored 8 runs in the second inning and then lost the game. They were leading 8-0, and the Tampa Bay Rays completed the biggest comeback in the majors this season with a 12-8 victory. 4 different Rays drove in 2 runs, and 4 others each had 1 ribby, and the 8-run comeback ties for the largest in franchise history. Kansas City a 6-3 winner over Texas. The Astros pounded out 20 hits and beat up the Athletics 11-4. The Rockies won over the Nats 3-1. The Dodgers edged the Padres 4-3. The Blue Jays no problem with Arizona 8-1. And both the Reds and Guardians won 4-2 games over the Twins and Giants respectively. Rain washed out 3 different contests. Doubleheaders going to be played today. That is a look at sports.
All right, had a lot of rain recently, Randy. Thank you very much. Still to come on the Noon Report. When it comes to that rain, it's rinse, recycle, repeat today. Iran targets Israeli civilians. And what is Juneteenth anyway?
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stone Street. Well, according to Nashville's WTVF News, 170 inmates at the Sumner County Jail in Tennessee were baptized on a single day last month. According to Jerry Scott, one of the supervisors, and I quote, "It matters because it's something they didn't expect. After all, many prisoners lose hope, believing I'm in jail, I'm incarcerated, and the world doesn't care about me." However, 2 Sumner County churches who partner with that jail do care, and now it's bearing fruit. Now, few things embody the reality and power of Christ as when believers care for the sick, the outcast, and the imprisoned. Like adoption, which reflects God's merciful care for those without hope, ministering to those in prison reflects God's passion to love the unlovely and to give grace to the guilty. After all, with few exceptions, inmates can't claim innocence. Now, of course, anyone familiar with the history of the Colson Center knows why this matters to us. It was during the incarceration of our founder, Chuck Colson, that seeds were first planted for what eventually became Prison Fellowship. Out of Prison Fellowship, which Chuck founded, and his deep concern that the church be the church, the Colson Center was eventually born. In prison, Chuck saw people without hope. He saw a system that was built on wrong ideas about human dignity, justice, and the potential for transformation. Just like those newly baptized people in Tennessee, prison became for Chuck a context for a new life. Chuck spent the next decades of his life after prison going back in, bringing the gospel to all those inside, including guards and wardens. He also adopted and expanded the Angel Tree program to reach the families of those in prison with the gospel and to keep children connected with their incarcerated parents. Chuck believed that the church behind the walls could have a significant impact on the wider culture, including the church outside the walls. Angel Tree demonstrates just how right Chuck was in this belief. An estimated 1 in 28 children in America have a parent that is behind bars, without either a mom or a dad in their daily lives, especially on important days like birthdays and Christmas. Angel Tree does not merely provide these children with a gift on Christmas Day, it provides these children with a gift from their mom or dad who is in prison on Christmas, while also connecting the family to a local church. Most of all, it's a way to share the love, the joy, the dignity of God to those who often cannot see it. At the Colson Center National Conference this year, Prison Fellowship's Heather Rice-Minus shared her thoughts on the beauty of the Angel Tree ministry. Here's Heather.
I've actually had the privilege of being an Angel Tree coordinator for my church in Washington, D.C. And I've done this for 5 years. And the first family I ever delivered to is one that we've remained in relationship with. I've invited them to my dinner table. We've gone to Angel Tree sports camps with the girls. They talk to their dad on the phone every week, but had never visited him in prison since he had been incarcerated. And so I asked, if all the hurdles were taken away, because they're living paycheck to paycheck, but if you had a car to drive you there, if there was a hotel and you could stay, would you want to see your dad? And they said yes. And so we got a minivan and we drove down, and I got to be a fly on the wall for this reunion of a father and his daughters and his granddaughter, and they had not seen each other in person for 15 years.
Now look, it's early to start thinking about the holidays, but please take time right now to learn about Angel Tree and how you can be involved this Christmas and even throughout the year. Visit prisonfellowship.org/angeltree to learn more. That's prisonfellowship.org/angeltree. And consider offering your prayers, your support, and maybe some time to this important ministry. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet with Breakpoint. Today's Breakpoint was co-authored by Dr. Timothy Paget. If you appreciate Breakpoint, please leave us a review wherever you download your podcast.
All right, John, thank you. Outside we go. Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life weather forecast for this afternoon. Variable clouds, some sun, couple showers and thunderstorms in the area. Any thunderstorm, as noted, can be locally strong. High temperature today, mid-70s to mid-80s. Activity tapering tonight, low temps around 60. Tomorrow, sun and clouds, slight chance of an afternoon thunderstorm, especially western New York. High temps, 70s and low 80s. On Saturday, partly sunny, warm, more humid again. Late day thunderstorm for some. High temperature Saturday in the 80s.
All right, Kevin, thank you. This is the Noon Report. Glad you're with us. I'm Bob Price. A lot to get to Thursday, the 19th of June. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is promising Iran will pay a heavy price after a missile strike on a hospital in Beersheba today. Tehran also struck a high-rise residential building near Tel Aviv. Nearly 100 Israeli civilians were injured. NBC's Richard Engel.
Dozens of Iranian ballistic missiles rained down across Israel this morning. Sirens wailed as Israeli air defense systems sprung into action. But at least 4 of Iran's powerful missiles made it through.
Midi scholar Mahal Cutler-Wunsch says Iran has a singular purpose with its nuclear weapons program.
The only mission that they have continues to be not just the annihilation of the state of Israel, the small devil, but the big devil, the destruction of the United States and our shared civilization.
President Trump says all options remain on the table in how we respond to Tehran. Simon Marks has more.
Over the next few hours in Iran, anything could happen.
You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do.
In the event that he pulls the trigger, America's B-2 pilots would drop bunker-busting bombs, the most powerful non-nuclear weapons in the U.S. arsenal, on Iranian nuclear facilities.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers remain divided over whether the use of U.S. force is justified here.
The American people did not vote last November to be dragged into one more endless war in the Middle East.
So either you want them to have a nuclear weapon or you don't. And if you don't, if diplomacy fails, use force.
A new poll from the Washington Post shows just 25% of the American people support the U.S. getting involved in the Iran-Israeli conflict. In a 6-3 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court yesterday gave states the right to ban transgender surgeries on kids. The blockbuster ruling will have profound impact nationwide. The state of Tennessee petitioned the High Court to defend its Help Not Harm law, which forbids puberty blockers or chemical castrations on children. The state's Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti.
The legislature looked at the evidence, heard testimony from doctors, from people who have gone through transition surgery, and recognized that there's a real risk of harm here to kids.
The High Court decision will likely give constitutional cover to 26 other states with similar bans. There's some significant damage to report on a SpaceX launch site in Texas. It exploded overnight.
Online cameras that watched the pad round the clock captured the explosion of Starship. This Starship wasn't expected to go on its test flight for at least a week when the explosion happened around 11 p.m. Central Time. Posting on X, the company said all workers have been accounted for and that there is no danger posed to the surrounding community. I'm Rory O'Neill.
All right, thank you, Rory. Today is Juneteenth, a federal holiday. That means banks, post offices, and government buildings are closed. But what are we celebrating when we celebrate Juneteenth?
We celebrate 4th of July. Juneteenth is the same thing as that.
On June 19, 1865, in the waning days of the Civil War, the last enslaved people learned about their freedom when Union soldiers reached Galveston, Texas. Announcing the Emancipation Proclamation, President Lincoln had signed 2.5 years before.
That is correspondent Aaron Gilchrist. Former President Biden made Juneteenth a federal holiday back in 2021. You're listening to the Noon Report for a Thursday on Family Life.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the voices on the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnish, and with me today, Alliance Defending Freedom attorney Cody Barnett. We're talking gay conversion therapy. Cody, tell me about the case before the U.S. Supreme Court of Christian counselor Kaylee Childs.
I'd be delighted to. The central feature of this case, can government tell counselors what they can and cannot say in the counseling room? A couple of years ago, Colorado enacted a law that said that counselors cannot give any counseling that would encourage a client to, quote, change his or her gender or sexuality. And it made only one exception for that, and that's if you're encouraging a client to change their gender to become in line with their thoughts rather than their body. This is a huge censorship effort by Colorado to push gender ideology in the counseling room and prevent parents and children from getting the help that they desperately need and want.
If you Google anything on this case, the words that you see are gay conversion therapy. And it's quite controversial. There are dozens of YouTube videos shredding a biblical worldview on counseling for the LGBTQ plus person. Why is Christian counseling necessary and needed?
This is an effort by the state to create a boogeyman of sorts by connecting some past practices with things that counselors like Kaylee Childs does not do and isn't even aware of anyone that does do them. All she does is talk and help clients reach the goals that they set for themselves. Many of these clients come to her with a shared Christian faith, and they want to live a life in harmony with the tenets of their Christianity. So they want her to help them reach those goals, including in areas of gender and sexuality. And you have Colorado saying, no, you can't do that. You cannot prioritize the tenets of your faith. It's just not appropriate for government to be telling clients or counselors how they can set those priorities in the counseling room.
Have Christians lost our voice in the therapy marketplace? On the outside, it seems to be okay until you cross the line you just mentioned on topics like gender ideology.
That is exactly the issue the Supreme Court has agreed to take up. Is what a counselor says to her client's speech protected by the First Amendment? There's a particular current to this case that this is not only speech, but it's speech grounded in faith, which the Supreme Court has been clear gets double protection from the First Amendment. The type of counseling they provide is protected by the Constitution.
You always run into trouble when you take away people's choices. Christian counseling versus secular counseling, my thought on is if you don't want Christian counseling, don't go to a Christian counselor. Pick something else. But taking away the entire option of Christian counseling is a problem. It's something that shouldn't be happening in this country.
That's exactly right. And this is a particularly unique moment in history where there is a mental health crisis fueled in large part by the gender ideology confusion that is happening. You have many secular organizations recognizing the need for more counseling. So for Colorado to take options off the table, it's only hurting families, not helping anyone.
What happens next in court?
There will be a briefing over the summer to be followed by oral argument in the fall with an expected decision by June of 2026.
And what's at stake if this case is lost?
Number one is the consequences to parents and children. They can't get the counseling that they want, that they need. And this problem is only going to get worse as options that are out there continue to dry up or get overcrowded. It just takes options off the table for these parents and the kids that want counseling that's aligned with their faith. The second tier of consequences are to professionals. If the state can say that what a counselor says is conduct that doesn't get constitutional protection, what's to stop the state from saying that to anybody else that has a professional license? And I think the third is just for Christians in general. This will be another domino of the states trying to get Christianity out of the public square. Because if they can take it out of the counseling room, what other parts of the public square can they say this is off limits for those who want to prioritize their faith?
This is a big deal to have a case go in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, it's like, what, 1 in every 100 cases actually makes it this far to the nation's highest court to be heard. Why do cases like this matter to you?
God has given all of us unique skill sets and abilities to be able to glorify Him, to be able to be out there on the front lines for His kingdom and to serve His people. And it gives meaning and purpose to the legal work that we do here at Alliance Defending Freedom every day.
Alliance Defending Freedom attorney Cody Barnett. Check out their website to learn more about religious freedom cases across the U.S. Be part of the work on the battlefield. You can find them at adflegal.org.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. Faith Under Fire airs Thursdays during the Noon Report. You can also catch it online anytime at familylife.org.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. We're tracking a cold front eastbound from Michigan. It's going to plow into the warm, humid air over us now and generate some scattered showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. Any thunderstorm could be rather potent with wind and hail and a torrential downpour in localized areas. Drier air, more comfortable air returns for tonight and tomorrow, only to be replaced by some hot, humid air as we head toward next week. The call for this afternoon, variable clouds, some sun, couple showers and thunderstorms in the area. Any thunderstorm, as noted, can be locally strong. High temperatures today, mid-70s to mid-80s. Activity tapering tonight, low temps around 60. Tomorrow, sun and clouds, slight chance of an afternoon thunderstorm, especially western New York, high temps, 70s and low 80s. On Saturday, partly sunny, warm, more humid again, late day thunderstorm for some. High temperatures Saturday in the 80s.
All right, Kevin, great work as always at the Weather Center. And finally, at noon for a Thursday, free is always better than not free. And Kroger grocery stores are celebrating the summer solstice tomorrow by offering free ice cream. Bree Tennis has more.
Kroger stores are giving away free ice cream Friday to celebrate the start of summer. There will be competition to get the needed coupon for the limited edition Summer in a Pint giveaway. There are more than 2,700 Kroger grocery stores in the U.S., and the company's giving out 92,000 coupons. You can have a go on Friday starting at noon Eastern Time by going to freekrogericecream.com. I'm Bree Tennis.
All right, Bree, thank you very much. And for the record, summer officially arrives tomorrow at 10:42 in the evening, Eastern Standard Time. And that's our world, the world we live in, Thursday, June 19th. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.